Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Got His Wish, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The golden rays of the morning sun gently caressed the sleeping forest, coaxing it to life. In the trees, birds awoke and sang in tribute to the new day. Rodents and reptiles emerged from their burrows to resume their eternal game of eat and be eaten. Predators yawned and stretched, readying themselves for the hunt. On the well-worn trail wending east towards the sunrise, 3 travelers had packed the tents, broken their fast, and begun the last leg of their journey. Among their number walked a tall teenager with spiky blonde hair clad in an orange and black jumpsuit, a taller man with short-cropped brown hair wearing black and green with mirrored sunglasses, and an older, muscular man in red. All of them were weary and rugged from their travels, but all had grins on their faces. Today's the day, isn't it? It was not a question, but a reiteration of fact that the teenager spoke. Yeah, it is, replied the old ninja. We'll reach Konoha by noon today. Plenty of time to see Tsunade and get reacquainted with the village. The man in sunglasses smiled broadly. Oh, if I know my little brother, here, he said, indicating the exuberant blonde kid at the front of the pack, he'll want to skip straight to the reacquainting. Hey, you know me almost too well, Keisuke, said the little brother in question. It wouldn't be a proper reunion if the great Uzumaki Naruto, Konoha's #1 loudest ninja, didn't make migraine-inducing light and noise upon entry. Keisuke laughed a little. No, I don't suppose it would. Just don't give any senile old fools a heart attack this early in the day. The older man huffed. And which senile fool might you be implying, Keisuke? No one in particular, Jiraiya. Naruto couldn't resist snickering a little. Everyone present knew that Keisuke had been referring to an incident that had taken place 3 weeks ago, when Jiraiya had announced that they were going home. The old hermit had retired to his usual research, to find an incredible harem already awaiting him on the men's side of the bath. However, no sooner had he fallen under the spell, than he was snapped back to reality, in which he learned that the harem was a masterfully crafted illusion developed by Naruto, with the help of Keisuke and, oddly enough, Haruka, and that the objects he had been groping were, in fact, a rock and an elderly man's right buttock. The resulting spasms that Jiraiya had exhibited had borne remarkable resemblance to the symptoms of an actual heart attack. Don't worry about it, Keisuke, Naruto said. I'm smart enough to know there's a time and place for that kind of jutsu. Konoha's perverts are safe. For now, he added silently, knowing that he'd have many opportunities to give the freaks what was coming to them later. Kind of a shame, though, he said. Haruka Ne-chan is going to miss all the reunion fun. She'll be along in good time, Keisuke assured him, as soon as she finishes her business in Suna. That Suna business again, Naruto thought. Do you really think that the Akatsuki are going to target Gaara? They'd have to be pretty confident to take on an entire ninja village by themselves. Jiraiya grunted. If they are, then we need to know. If they have enough power to take Sabaku no Gaara, then they probably have enough power to try to take me, Naruto finished with a sigh. I've heard it about, 4 times now. It's getting on my nerves. This definitely wasn't Naruto's favorite conversational topic. At the moment, he wanted to focus on all the fun he was going to have shocking his old friends with his explosive reappearance. I'm more worried about Haruka Ne-chan. Haruka's a strong woman. Akatsuki or not, she'll find us, and she'll bring the information we need with her. Keisuke's tone was level and serious as he said this. Naruto's eyes, however, had a mischievous gleam to them that erased any trace of seriousness from the situation. Strong woman, huh, Keisuke. She must have beat you good that last round if you're praising her. She won't believe me when I tell her. Keisuke's face flushed a little. Ah, geez. Look, Naruto, I'll buy you 10 bowls of ramen if you never speak of it again. One of the stranger aspects of Keisuke and Haruka's friendly rivalry was that neither of them ever verbally acknowledged any positive quality exhibited by the other. Even if Haruka were to beat him 100 times out of 100, Keisuke still wouldn't ever credit her. Likewise, Whenever Haruka was beaten, which had begun to happen less and less as the two became used to fighting each other, she would never acknowledge defeat. They had been this way since Haruka had joined them. Though they practiced with each other every day, grinned when they passed each other, and seldom argued, neither would be caught decomplimenting the other. Naruto thought it was strange, but as long as they weren't trying to K each other, he was fine with it. Still, that wouldn't stop him from having fun with them when they slipped up. Alright, Keisuke, he said, I'll take the bribe today, since I've got bigger things on my mind. Watch yourself when Haruka-ne-chan comes back, though. Right. Keisuke fought the urge to question Naruto on what he had planned for him when Haruka-ne-chan came back. The kid's prankster gene had a habit of manifesting itself when Keisuke least wanted it to. His struggle was interrupted by the voice of the Toad Sennin behind him. So, Keisuke, what are you going to bribe me with? Hey. Keisuke had the feeling that this would turn out to be quite an interesting day. Hinata stood alone in the oak grove near the village's south wall. As she and her teammates usually did on their free days, she had come to practice, polishing the skills that had at last begun to earn her some respect amongst the Hyuga elders, in particular, her father. Just 3 weeks previous, Hiashi, who had not shown more than the smallest scraps of care for his daughter early in her life, had finally acknowledged Hinata as a fine young woman, and a fit heir to my place as clan head, before the Council of Elders, a memory which did not cease to make her smile. It was earning her more than favor among her clan, though. Neji, though still head and shoulders above her in experience and skill, had begun to comment openly among their peers on how quickly she was progressing, with the result that the dark, shy girl was receiving many cheerful greetings where she previously had not. The influence of the Hyuga prodigy, combined with Hinata's recent success in her missions and her emergence into the prime of her youthful beauty, had increased her reputation by leaps and bounds throughout the village. Already, several young men had approached her, though their attempts at establishing a deep relationship had thus far all met, usually unpleasant, ends. If Kiba, who had taken to Hinata like an overprotective big brother as well as teammate, didn't scare them away, then Neji would take the young man in question aside to discuss compatibility, after which the would-be suitor was never seen anywhere near the Hyuga compound ever again. Though she might have been a little embarrassed with the blunt manner in which Kiba and Neji handled the poor fools, Hinata was secretly glad to be rid of them. Many of them were not even worth giving a second look by Sakura or Ino's book, many of those that were had some mental issues that needed to be addressed. There were those few who both looked and behaved presentable, and one or two even had genuine charm, but in all of them, no matter how good-looking or well-mannered, not a single one possessed the fiery spirit, the strength of will, the empathy that comes from a painful past, or the courage that one develops to live with that pain. None of them had ever shown her how to stand up for herself, change herself, despite all she had been through. None of them were ever going to merit the name of Hokage. Hinata gave a small sigh, bringing a tinge of sadness into the bright, sunlit afternoon. Though her life had become better than it had ever been, without the presence of the one who had made it all possible for her, it just did not have the same flair. Yes, life was good, but it was also less than it could have been for her, and Hinata knew it. Yet she held hope. Rumors of the Toad Sennin's imminent return, and with it, Hinata knew, his return, had begun spreading in the village 2 days ago, a fact that Kiba had made sure she did not forget. In the absence of Naruto, the former Rookie 9 had found themselves without a class clown. In times where humor was deemed direly needed, Chuji and Kiba had, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not, taken up the slack admirably. With the recent rumors flying about, Kiba had taken to showing up to team functions occasionally in the guise of Konhegakure's #1 most surprising ninja. When Hinata had asked him why he did it when the only ones who really found it funny were himself and their former sensei, Kurenai, Kiba had responded with a shrug and said, "I'm a little excited, I guess. None of us have seen the big idiot in almost 3 years, after all." Kiba's mood seemed to reflect the moods of all their peers, as well. When Hinata passed them in the streets, she noted that Shikamaru, Chuji, Ino, Rock Lee, Neji, Tenten, and Sakura were all in a much more chipper state than usual. At the same time, she noticed that the adults in town seemed on edge, as if bracing themselves against a coming winter. The Ichiraku noodle bar was staying open later these days, and the ramen there seemed to improve in quality, as if in anticipation of its favorite customer's jubilant return. In fact, Konoha as a whole seemed to be holding its breath, all its many inhabitants clenching their jaws expectantly for the arrival of a single loudmouthed, blonde-haired, teenage ninja. While all this was going on, Hinata's peers, Kiba, Ino, and Sakura, in particular, went out of their way to mention Naruto and his party whenever she was in earshot. Whether it was meant as teasing or encouragement, Hinata did not know. However, she did know that it made her uncomfortable, and so she had thrown herself ever deeper into her training to escape it. The problem now was that it was difficult to have team practice when your team hasn't arrived. Hinata resisted the urge to sigh and go home, instead opting to sink into her Juken-ready stance and begin her warm-up exercises without them. Flowing gracefully through her movements, controlling her chakra with precision, the Hyuga heiress seemed to dance across the forest floor, and she made the leaves on their branches dance with her. Even Shino, who never openly admitted to experiencing an emotion, had conceded that watching Hinata's dance-like practice had moved him. His face had remained as expressionless as ever while he'd said this, but just the fact that he had said it spoke much for Hinata's graceful manner of combat. The tall boy wearing orange and black in a nearby tree seemed to appreciate it, too. His face shone with a cheerful and impressed-looking expression as he lightly hopped down from the branch he'd been standing on. Wow, Hinata, I've never seen anyone move like that. His voice was remarkably similar to that of the Uzumaki Naruto that Hinata had known 3 years previously, if a little deeper. Who taught you to move like that? Some kind of angel or forgotten goddess? She knew it wasn't really him, but the likeness was so effective that she couldn't stop her face from heating up slightly. Hinata stiffened a little, rising out of her stance and turning to face the boy whom she presumed to be her teammate. Please, Kiba-kun, you know I don't like it when you do that, she said. The smile faded from the boy's whisker-marked face. It was replaced by a narrow-eyed, confused look. Hinata marveled at how accurately her teammate was portraying the slightly comical facial expressions of a dumbfounded Naruto, and began to wonder a bit if Kiba was more interested in their blonde comrade than he was telling. Her silver lavender eyes widened somewhat when she heard him ask, Kiba. What? Do I smell like wild dog or something? Maybe I should have bathed more carefully this morning. His words trailed off and his eyes closed in concentration, as if he were going into a bout of deep thought. These words, this expression, and his immediate jump to the inaccurate conclusion that she had called him Kiba-kun, because of a completely mundane reason, were very realistic Narutoisms, worthy of the genuine article. What was more, Kiba had never tried to maintain the illusion once Hinata had asked him to stop. The situation was beginning to look very unlike what Hinata had first thought it was, and it was making her very nervous. As he shook off his apparent confusion and began to walk forward, instinct and force of habit made Hinata back slowly away and bring her fingers together in front of her. Kiba-kun, she said, feeling herself growing steadily more uneasy, please, stop. It isn't funny. The Naruto look-alike finished. A hurt expression was on his face now as he said, what's not funny is you're not recognizing an old friend. It kinda hurts, after all the trouble I went to get noticed around here. As he spoke, he continued to move towards Hinata until finally, as he trailed off, she had her back to an old tree. He brought one hand forward, resting it on the bark above her shoulder, leaning on the tree, and drew closer until their faces were mere inches apart. The pained smirk on his face and the expression in his cerulean pupils overpowered Hinata's better judgment. She began to think that maybe, just maybe, this was the real Naruto, and she was making him sad. Hinata, he said, after all this time I thought I could count on you, if nobody else, to acknowledge me. No way. She couldn't be making him sad. After all the chances she'd missed to make him happy, she couldn't stand for it. Naruto-kun. But now a new expression had crossed the face of the boy she admired. It was no longer sad, on the contrary, it was a happier face than she could have imagined seeing. It was elated, triumphant, ecstatically happy. Scary happy, even. Deranged happy. Evil happy. Hinata snapped out of her Naruto-induced trance too late. She was snared, and about to be K without even throwing a single attack at her K, because she had failed to see past a simple illusion. Here's a little message from the master who will crush your precious blondie and your village along with him, the Uchi. Gatsuuga. A solid mass spinning at gale wind force can be very painful to a human being if a direct collision occurs, as the Naruto imposter quickly learned that day. The mass in question s into him like a runaway cart, sending him flying head over heels into a rather large and solid rock formation. From the cyclone-style spin emerged the form of Inuzuka Kiba, looking extremely annoyed and more than a little roughed up. Behind him, a large dog, named Akamaru by his wild man of a master, had its nose to the ground, seeking out possible additional targets. Insects swarmed toward Hinata from the trees above, alighting on the tree that she had been tied to. Within a few short moments, they had eaten through the wire that bound her, and she was free. As she shrugged off the last shreds of metal, Aburame Shino jumped lightly to the ground. He lifted his arms, silently commanding the destruction bugs who made their home within him. They left the tree and converged on the stunned Naruto look-alike, proceeding to eat away at him with a frenzy found nowhere else in the animal kingdom. As you may have guessed, this shinobi is not Naruto, he said. His ever-inflectionless voice hinted at light fatigue and a sense of urgency. That big-mouthed dunce, gasped Kiba, who had apparently spent a great deal of energy to arrive in time. Even when he's gone, he can't stop making trouble for us. He stopped speaking when Akamaru barked at him, signaling that he'd picked up a new target. Both dog and master sprinted off into the forest in pursuit. Hinata, who had fully recovered her wits by this time, dusted herself off and tried to make sense of the situation. She turned to her bug user teammate. Shino-kun, what's happening? Aburame Shino responded as emotionlessly as was his custom. Very little is known about what is truly going on, he said. Kiba and I were greeted by a person appearing to be Uzumaki Naruto. We were unable to discern anything unusual about him, either by Akamaru's nose or the perceptions of my bugs. We believed him to be the true Naruto, and did not question him. Even when several more of him appeared, we did not react. We assumed that it was some childish prank involving his cage buncheons. He paused a moment, as if trying to put adequate words to his story without expressing too much feeling. Hinata, I find this somewhat disturbing. A dog's nose cannot be fooled by any normal shinobi illusion, and the bugs that make their hive in my body are supposed to be unmatched in skill at sensing friend from foe. Yet, for all our talents, we were fooled. Even the Byakugan, it seems, cannot see the truth behind this illusion. Hinata flushed a little bit and looked away from Shino. She wasn't about to tell her teammate that she had not even attempted to use the Byakugan on the strange Naruto, but she couldn't help feeling a bit ashamed. Her eyes wandered to the imposter, and she saw that the bugs had finished their work. Shino called them back, and the two of them went over to examine the body. It was nothing out of the ordinary, if a little pale. But Shino gave a nod and said, no mistake. It's identical to the ones Kiba and I defeated. Hinata looked at him, puzzled. You mean, all of them looked exactly like this one? Hi. Once the bugs had finished with them, they all looked as this one does now. This one does, too, said Kiba, who arrived behind them. Shino nodded again. Your theory may be correct, Kiba. Hinata's face became very serious. What theory is that, Shino-kun? The bug user pushed his sunglasses farther up his nose. It is likely, judging from the sheer numbers that have appeared and the consistency of their appearance beneath the illusion, that someone has been mass-producing Uzumaki Naruto for some ill purpose in the village of Konoha. Mass-producing Naruto-kuns, Hinata thought. For a moment, she suffered an involuntary daydream involving multiple Narutos in various states of mind with various narutoshippudens in various states of undress storming the Hyuga compound, overpowering and winning the respect of her father, and proceeding to bring the light that is Naruto's way of life to the dreary existence of the heirs to the Byakugan. This isn't good, Kiba said, jerking Hinata out of her vision. According to Kurenai-sensei and Hokage-sama, there's only one person with the power or even the sinister kind of mind you need to do something like this. All of the members of Team 8 thought the same name. Orochimaru. We should hurry back to the village, Shino said. If we were so easily deceived, then we cannot afford to make the assumption that others will not be fooled as well. Every person that Uzumaki Naruto has ever known could be in great danger. Iruka was still having a difficult time believing that so many shinobi could so flawlessly transform themselves into, and effortlessly pass for, his favorite student. Granted, Naruto tended to be a predictable sort of guy in his everyday behavior despite the unpredictability in combat that made him such a wild card, but nobody he knew could be so convincing with a normal illusion. Unfortunately for him, he did not have much time to focus on his disbelief, as he was currently under attack from no less than 20 Naruto lookalikes, all of them possessing the skill of at least Chunin D Shinobi. Iruka was battered and winded, and much of his chakra was already depleted in self-defense and the defense of the academy students, who had just finished evacuating safely. They needn't have bothered, though, the Naruto clones seemed to want to KO only Iruka. While this was probably best for the cadets, it didn't help the old instructor out at all. "What's the matter, Iruka-sensei?" one of them chimed. "You can't be tired already. You always had the energy to rip on me whenever I played my pranks. What happened?" Iruka grimaced. It might not have been authentic, but this Naruto looked real enough to sting him just a little. The boy was, after all, very special to him. He was like a kid brother and a son all rolled into one loud, blonde package. "You," he growled, struggling to put as much force as possible behind his voice, "don't talk to me like you know me, you fraud." All of the Narutos present gaped at him, wide-eyed. "Iruka-sensei." Then they all hung their heads, and tears began to flow from the blue eyes. They continued to speak, each saying a few words of the same monologue. "You were the very first person to accept me for the person I really was." As each one spoke, a change began to come over them all. Their eyes became bee-red, and their teeth and fingernails began to elongate into serrated fangs and razor-sharp claws. The rage on their faces shone through to Iruka's mind like a flame on the blackest night. And every last one of them was radiating the emotion that Iruka had never expected to feel from his favorite pupil: hate. Spitting, violent, K-hate. For breaking my trust. For leaving me alone. To confirm my existence. Quote. This last phrase was echoed by every Naruto clone in front of him as they all charged forth, their eyes aglow with K-intent. Iruka was surrounded. He could neither escape nor fend off such a concerted attack, and reinforcements were reportedly being held up by other Naruto invaders. With no way out, Iruka closed his eyes and braced himself for death. "Who do you think I am, Sabaku no Gara? I'm not so weak to have to confirm my existence that way." The voice, coming from above, caught the lookalikes completely by surprise. Halting their attack, every head turned to look up at the roof of the main building, where there stood a tall, wild-looking blonde in an orange and black jumpsuit. Their hesitation was all that was needed for his trap to work. Below them, a large and elaborate seal began to glow eerily white. Reud Ninpu, Chiribufuwana. Ghostly arms secret art, dust storm snare. Some invisible force seemed to run through or across the seal, and the air immediately began to swirl around the imposters, blindingly thick with dust and dirt. None of them could move without being caught in the wind or choking on dust. The real Naruto took the opportunity to leap down from his perch and grab his old sensei from the ground, moving the exhausted Chunin out of harm's way. Once they were a safe distance from the dirty maelstrom, Iruka was able to get a good look at his rescuer. He needed no second hint. The telltale gleam in the eyes, the slightly overconfident, excited grin, the battle-eager posture. No doubt about it, this one was Iruka's true protege. "Naruto, your timing couldn't have been better." A smile crossed his B. All near-mortal injury aside, the boy's return meant the return of much grief, and also much excitement, to the village, and to Iruka's, for a ninja, simple life. "Not the D-last I used to be, huh?" Naruto's grin covered the entire lower third of his face. Iruka didn't respond. Instead he asked, what kind of ninjutsu was that? Surely Jiraiya-sama didn't teach a skill that unique. It didn't seem that Naruto's smile could have gotten any bigger, and yet at Iruka's question, it did. "Nor. A really old friend taught it to me. But here's something that Ero Sennin did teach me." He ran his hands through a set of rapid, complicated seals, ending with the sign of the tiger. "No way," Iruka thought as Naruto took a huge breath, "no way he's going to." Kaiten, Kuryu Enden. Fire style, dragon flame missile. A gargantuan plume of flame leaped from Naruto's mouth, searing towards the trapped imposters. The flames were picked up by the wind, and spread to encompass the entire area of the trap. For a moment, Iruka worried that such a powerful technique, one once used by the third Hokage himself, might burn down the academy. But the intense wind contained it all, and the only things burned were dust and dirt and Naruto wannabes. When all was quiet again, Naruto turned to his former teacher, gleefully waiting for praise. Iruka, dumbfounded by the new Naruto's display of firepower, failed to give any words. But the Chunin and Junin who had arrived during the fireworks display did. Geez, Naruto, didn't you learn anything subtle in your 3 years away? You've destroyed all the evidence of the invaders. Naruto turned around to see 3 familiar faces. Tenten had been the speaker. With her were the other members of the old team Guy, Rock Lee and Hyuga Neji. All of them had grins on their faces. Tenten had feigned annoyance, but all 3 of them had expected nothing less from Uzumaki Naruto. Like the rest of their comrades, they'd given up hope on him learning much subtlety, and had put their faith in his ability to make up for it with his unpredictability and his overly flashy fighting style. Naruto flashed them his trademark foxy grin and replied, there'll be plenty more. Anyone who goes to the trouble to make this much trouble will definitely make a lot more trouble, or something like that. Hyuga Neji was pleased to have the buffoon back, though he said nothing. It was the same old Naruto, a fighting genius, but otherwise bordering on total idiocy. Yet Neji's eyes discerned a new aspect to the blonde ninja. The old Naruto might have asked why any evidence was needed at all as long as the targets were eliminated, and then become angry with himself when told why. This Naruto had merely laughed and asserted his belief that not all was lost. He was still Naruto in essence, carefree, loud, and lacking any sense of subtlety, only now he was showing signs of a little maturity. Good, he thought, watching as his old teammate, Lee, exchanged youthful greetings with Naruto. He'll be much more suitable this way. Activating his Byakugan to scan for any surviving invaders, Neji spotted another welcome surprise. Team Kurenai was moving their way, coming to investigate the huge explosion of flame. This both interested and worried him. He was very interested in seeing what Naruto thought about the effects of Hinata's work with him. Among other things, he was extremely proud of much his help had done for his cousin's development. At the same time, however, he was worried about Hinata. After 3 years away from him, what would her reaction be to Naruto's sudden reappearance? Well, we'll find out rather quickly, won't we? Indeed, they did. Kiba was the first to spot him. Unfortunately, the exceptionally bad quality of his day, combined with the number of bruises he'd acquired and the number of Naruto invaders he'd had to pummel, caused him to immediately assume the worst. He cried, another one. How many can there possibly be? He charged the unsuspecting blonde with a Kamaru at his side, whirling into the Garchuga with all his waning force. Without sufficient warning, Naruto was blown 40 yards straight backwards. Before anyone could muster the wit to shout a warning, Kiba renewed his attack, coming at Naruto on all fours. This time, however, Kiba's attack was parried. A thick tendril of blue chakra lashed out in front of Naruto from behind his back, blocking Kiba's right arm, while 4 more held the big dog at bay. Another 4 remained behind Naruto, ready to parry anything more that might come his way. Cursing, Kiba threw a foot at his head, but this Naruto caught with his hand. What the hell? Kiba asked, twisting out of Naruto's grip and landing on his feet 10 yards away. He. Naruto said, beaming with pride, how do you like my new specialty, Kiba? The Rokujuyon Reud, Tomashibi no Kyubi. 64 ghostly arms, 9 tails of light. Neji's Byakugan revealed a wealth of information about this new maneuver. The Hyuga prodigy was shocked to see that the 9 tails of light were each made of 4 thin strands of chakra-carrying tendrils, emerging from different tenketsus across his body and woven together into thicker bands. What was more, the strands that made up the tails were not the only strands. Several more flickered out from the rest of his tenketsus, apparently unused. Whatever this technique was, Neji could see that Naruto was not using it to its full potential, but this realization did not negate the amazement that the potential he was using generated. Damn it, Kiba swore. You're not like the others. What the hell are you? Iruka stepped forward. Kiba, it's alright. This one really is. Uzumaki Naruto, of course. Don't tell me you forgot your number 1 most surprising ninja. Or has the kid been lying about his amazing reputation the whole time? Neji frowned. He'd been so busy watching things here that he'd allowed this unknown shinobi to approach them uncontested. He was about to go and question the newcomer, and to fight him as a Junin of Konoha should if he proved unfriendly, but his uncertainty was dispelled by Naruto's response. Keisuke, you missed all the action, Ni-chan. What were you and Ero Sennin doing back there? Looking again with his Byakugan, Neji could see that this man seemed to possess the same projected chakra strands that Naruto did. His sense of amazement increased as he watched the strands sweep through the air at a rapid rate, feeling out objects, exploring their surroundings. This man appeared to utilize the ability more fully, using the strands as a sensory organ when he wasn't using them for something else. Easy, kid. I just had to help the old fart get his day planner sorted out right. Hard to believe how easily he mixes up his priorities. Now Neji was curious. Naruto addressed this man as a brother, yet he had never been seen before anywhere in the village, as far as Neji's memory went. He could tell that the man had some considerable skill in the secret arts from the way he held himself, but his easygoing attitude and casual reference to the famous Toad Sennin of Konoha implied that he wasn't a threat, at least on the surface. Anyway, Naruto, the stranger, Keisuke, continued, nice kaboom. Care to introduce me to your friends? Naruto was more than happy to oblige. With gusto, he introduced Keisuke to Neji, Lee, Tenten, Iruka, and Kiba, saying hello himself to each in turn. When he reached the blue-haired, red-faced girl at the back of the group, however, he was at a loss for words. Keisuke, this is Huh. Who is that girl? I've never seen her around before. Keisuke, however, didn't appear to need any introduction. He stepped closer to her, and Neji could see as he swept his chakra strands over her, feeling out her shape, her aura, her posture. Within a moment of concentration, Keisuke smiled. Hyuga Hinata, he asked, isn't it? I thought we'd meet again. Neji looked at Naruto. He, along with a number of their comrades, had been wanting to see this moment for a long while. He smiled smugly when he saw the awed look on the blonde teenager's face. Even without the Byakugan, he could tell exactly what Naruto was thinking. This is Hinata. Job well done, Neji thought. The smug smile wouldn't leave his face for some time. Hinata-sama, you've grown so much, he's speechless. Keisuke also smiled. Kid's been so wrapped up in learning his Rokujuon Ryu that he hasn't stopped to think about all the good things that might be going on back home. Hinata finally fought down her nerves and dropped her hands to her sides. This fidgeting habit was something she'd have to work harder on kicking. Single quote. Anno, Naruto-kun, are you alright? It was a good question. Naruto was beginning to look less like himself and more like a statue. Fortunately, it was enough to jar him back to himself in time to form a relevant reply. Hey, yeah? Hinata, I'm fine, he said. Better than ever. Keisuke and Ero Sennin turned me into a ninjutsu powerhouse. He was mostly himself again now, loud and infectiously jubilant. As he turned to introduce Keisuke to Shino, however, there was an undercurrent in his thoughts that was having trouble finding its way out of his brain. Wow, Hinata's changed, a lot. As he finished the introduction, he added the afterthought, I like it. As soon as Keisuke finished shaking hands with Shino and both of them had pushed their sunglasses back farther up their noses, Iruka spoke up. Hey, Naruto, you've been gone a long time, and I'm sure you're tired from all that walking. How about I treat us all to some ramen? It'll be a great opportunity to relax and tell us a few stories. The elite should just be finishing up the last of your look-alikes, so we can go now. What do you say? Naruto smirked, and turned an evil eye towards Keisuke. Oh, I don't think you have to treat us, Iruka-sensei. I've got a few favors left to collect. 85 of them. Keisuke groaned. I deserve it. I knew those ramen bribes would come back to bite me on the ass one day. No234 ran full out away from the village of hiding in Leaf, knowing full well what would happen if he were caught. The Konoha interrogators wouldn't be so bad, he knew, compared to what would happen after. Once the Leaf was through with him, Danzu's contacts would arrange to have him transferred to another holding facility, and there the real pain would begin. They'd feed him to the Uchiha, and he'd be screaming. He'd seen it happen, he had no desire to experience it firsthand. So he ran. The face-copying jutsu would weaken in a few days, and he could return to his natural form, find a nice village to hole up in, and live in moderate safety for the rest of his unnatural life. That was the plan, anyway. But alas, Such plans have a tendency to go disastrously awry at the most inconvenient times. No234 tried to duck into a bush to hide from the shinobi party, but he was much too slow and clumsy. One of them heard him. Veins popped out around her eyes, and she looked right through the bush and saw him there. With speed born of desperation, he charged the woman, fist dead. Without missing a beat, however, she swept a leg out, tripping him. He began to fall, right into the woman's open palm. The velocity provided by the fall, coupled with the chakra that the woman spiked into his system, caused the blow to be very painful and knockout-inducing. Thus was No234 defeated with a single shot. Before he lost consciousness, No234 could hear the woman exchanging words with her companions. Naruto. Quote. No, Sakura-san. It's just a copy. A very convincing illusion, but still not the genuine article. The true Naruto-kun should be back in the village by now. Sakura-san, Temari-san, do either of you have any rope? I think there was some in Kakashi-sensei's pack. I'll check. Please don't wake Kakashi-san, though. He had it very rough back in Suna. Right, Haruka-san. Ichiraku Ramen had not had so many customers at one time since the introduction of Chuki's diet ramen, 3 years previously, and even then there had not been quite so many. Fortunately, the shop had been able to expand itself to nearly 3 times its original size in recent months, and the new tables and reupholstered bar stools just barely fit the large group inside. Old man Tuki had closed the store to additional customers. It did not seem like this little private party would be going anywhere fast. The tall man in sunglasses was still shoveling out money for the ramen as fast as the party could eat it. If there was such a thing as bliss, Naruto was very near to it. His stomach was happy to have its 4th bowl in it, his spirit was happy to have exercised its growing power for all to see, and his soul was happy to be surrounded by his friends again. They crowded around him, commenting on his new attire. Ino had happily scoffed at the tacky, stealth compromising shade of orange while exhibiting a smile of exceptional caliber, laughing at his stories about the illustrious Jiraiya, marveling at the tall man with the rapidly emptying wallet as Naruto sang his praises, and asking questions about Haruka and about all the new tricks he had learned. In particular, they asked about the flashy, unique jutsu involving the powerful chakra, tails. Well, Keisuke knows more about it than I do, he said, his mouth full of noodles. He took a moment to swallow before continuing. I only really got the hang of the Tomoshibi no Kyubi a few months ago. It was hard enough trying to learn the Rokujuyon Reud in between Erosenen's sessions. Naruto suddenly experienced a sensation of awe as he realized how many sets of eyes were focused on him. He'd known that people would want to know about the Reud, but he'd never expected anyone to be this attentive to him in his entire life. Not that he minded, it definitely felt like something he could get used to. Filling his voice with as much pride as he could, he kept speaking, the ramen before him temporarily forgotten. We're not really sure exactly what the Reud is. Keisuke thinks it might be some emerging type of Kekai Genkai Jutsu, but neither of us can tell. My hopes are high, though. If it is, nobody's going to be able to forget me. If it is, thought Neji, seated at a table nearby with his teammates, then he's going to find himself in the spotlight, that's for sure. But he's also going to find out just what kind of burdens the possessors of bloodline-specific jutsus must assume. If he lives to have children, they'll have to be trained in its proper use, how to conceal it from enemies that would eliminate or steal it. In short, Uzumaki Naruto will have figure out how to manage a Kekai Genkai clan system. The idea didn't sound so bad, if one did not take into account the fact that on the average day, Uzumaki Naruto appeared to have little else on his mind besides eating ramen, finding his lost teammate, and learning to become the best shinobi in the village, for the village's own protection. Noble goals, the latter two, but they wouldn't help to keep a powerful bloodline limit technique under control. And Uzumaki doesn't seem to have any desire to learn anything else at the moment, Neji thought. Watching the laughing blonde a moment longer, the Hyuga prodigy came to a decision. As much as it still pains me to admit it, I still owe that happy idiot. Images of his younger self in the dirt before all of Konoha in the Chunin examination, learning a painful lesson from a dropout who made his own fate rather than resigning himself to it filled his mind. If this, Rokujuyon Reud, is what we think it is, then I'll teach Naruto a few lessons in return. One table over, Neji's cousin had been fairly quiet. Hinata had laughed along with the others at Naruto's tales of Jiraiya's misadventures, and listened with the same curiosity as everyone else to his rough explanation of his new powers, but she had not said a word herself since they had arrived. She now sat, slightly pink-faced and wide-eyed, contemplating all that she had seen and heard. Uzumaki Naruto had grown to be all that Hinata had hoped he would be. He was still the high-spirited, tough-talking, orange-wearing kid that she had admired 3 years ago. He still cherished a dream of becoming the Hokage and protecting the village, still had the indomitable instinct to push forward, no matter the cost to himself. His inner strength, the strength that truly endeared him to her, was strong as ever. But now, Uzumaki Naruto actually possessed much of the outward strength that he had been striving to obtain when she had last seen him. His flashy display near the academy earlier that morning had been a true wonder, coming from so young a person. Jiraiya's training had, apparently, paid off extremely well. But it was this, Rokujuyon Reud, technique that was most catching her attention, and the attention of their peers. She had taken a quick look with the Byakugan at him when they'd arrived at the restaurant, but she hadn't been able to see anything unusual then. The strange arms that continuously protruded from Keisuke's tenketsu seemed to have retracted, in Naruto's case. Their mark, however, still remained burned into her teammates' memory. "Ah, Naruto," groaned Kiba, "those tails you have, like hitting a damn brick wall." "They ought to be," Naruto beamed, grabbing his 5th bowl of ramen, "since it takes more than half of the arms to make them. 4 arms per tail, and 9 tails, is, what, 36 arms out of 64. Not a whole lot left over for trap seals and other stuff, so yeah, it costs me something." Once some of the group had gotten over their shock at Naruto's sudden knowledge of multiplication tables, they proceeded to murmur softly to themselves in various states of mild awe. Hinata, however, had a different thought pattern going through her head. 9 tails, she whispered, Tomoshibi no Kyubi. Naruto-kun. She raised her voice to an audible level as she said his name, seeking his attention. "Ha," came the intelligent reply as the blonde turned her way. She watched as his eyes settled on her, widened a little, then returned to normal as he appeared to shake something out of his head. Damn, he thought, I'm still having trouble remembering that Hinata looks like this now. Throwing off his minor amazement more quickly this time, Naruto settled back into himself. Yeah, Hinata, what's up? Well, I was wondering, the tails technique is very good, very creative, and cute, in a way, and generally incredible. But I was wondering, Naruto-kun, why 9 of them? She could see Naruto's face pale a little at these words, and wondered what she could have done to produce that reaction. Hinata was about to continue questioning him, but Shikamaru beat her to it. I've been wondering about that, myself, he said. It's a very creative jutsu, that's for certain. What's most interesting about it is the way it seems to allude to the 9-tailed fox demon which almost annihilated Konoha. Several people glanced at Shikamaru's bold statement. Many of them had been wondering about that, themselves, but Shikamaru had been the first to act on his suspicions. As everyone's eyes settled back on Naruto, Hinata could sense that the blonde was beginning to get a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's all bad, Naruto, he continued, but I'm curious to know what might have been running through your head, conscious or subconscious, that inspired you to take on the semblance and, partially, the name of that beast. Naruto seemed as though he'd been backed into a corner. Hinata could see that gears were turning in his brain, and he had the look of a stressed man attempting to make up an answer that would satisfy his friends without giving away the truth. It lasted only about 2 seconds, but that was more than enough time for her to discern that there was more to the story of this jutsu than Naruto was about to tell. Well, with a name like that, he said, the big grin returning to his face, you can't really expect anybody to ignore it, can you? Most people in the room seemed to buy his explanation, and they returned to their meals happily, some of them re-engaging in excited conversation. But all over the restaurant Hinata could see the faces of those who seemed to know better. Shikamaru and Neji, like her, had noticed the discomforted expression and caught his frantic search for a good lie. Others though, such as Iruka-sensei and Old Man Tuki and the newcomer, Keisuke, exchanged unmistakable silent communication in the form of grave, slightly sad smiles. What is Naruto-kun keeping from us? A knock at the door ended her chain of thoughts. Tuki moved to intercept the newcomers, indicating that the shop was closed, but stopped when he recognized the Anbu masks. Bowing to them, he moved aside to let them pass. They strode into the center of the room, where the eyes of everyone present fell upon them. The leader unrolled an official-looking scroll and proceeded to read. By order of Godime Hokage, we Anbu are instructed to take Uzumaki Naruto and his guest, Keisuke, to the E-office in Hokage Tower. Sighing in relief, Keisuke slipped his now empty wallet into his pocket. Shizune opened the door and stood aside for the Hokage's guests to pass. She gave Naruto a big smile, happy to see him and witness his great development, but said nothing. This was official village business, and she had to remain silent, as was procedure, at least until Naruto shattered all pretense that this was business as usual with his unquenchable rebelliousness. As the two men came to a halt before the great desk, her superior, the lord of all the ninja in the village in Konoha, raised her head, grinned broadly, and opened the meeting in her usual diplomatic manner. I am Konohagakure's fifth Hokage, Tsunade. It gives me pleasure to welcome you both back to the village. It is an honor to be welcomed here, Hokage-sama. Your reputation, and the reputation of Konoha, precedes you, even in the remote parts of the world from whence I come. The stranger bowed low in reverence to Tsunade. Shizune marveled at the grace he had for such a tall man, and more so at his apparent ease in a diplomatic setting. Not all ninja had such traits. As Uzumaki Naruto proceeded to demonstrate. Or, can the formalities, Bar-chan? You should know better around me. And you should know better than to talk like that in front of your superiors, brat, Tsunade said. Then she swept around the desk and came to stand before him, a huge grin prominent on her mien. Like many in the village, she was pleased to see him back. Jiraiya has already made his report. I thought I'd bring you in here to make sure there was nothing that he missed, in his excitement at being back home. Grins on both sides turned sinister, knowing the kind of thing that the Toad Sennin was likely to conveniently forget. However, Naruto was feeling merciful today, so he decided to keep his mouth shut for now. He'd get a little more blackmail out of Ero Sennin before he blabbed. Tsunade wasn't pleased at her lack of reason to smash Jiraiya, but was too glad to have Naruto back to care at that moment. She turned to the stranger, whom Shizune presumed to be the Keisuke from Jiraiya's report, and began to question him. Keisuke of the Grave, correct. Speaking, Hokage-sama. Jiraiya told me that you are skilled in the shinobi arts. He reported that you fought alongside him many times during your travels, and that you have, on some occasions, handled multiple journeyman-level ninja. That is accurate, Hokage-sama. Tsunade appeared to be scrutinizing him very carefully, though what she was searching for exactly, only she knew. Is it also true that you have defeated the A-ranked renegade ninja, Daisuke of the Rotting BG? Keisuke's face twitched a little at the memory of the annoying bone tank, but he kept his composure. I take partial credit for the destruction of Daisuke, yes. My power enabled his defeat, and the K-blow was mine, but I alone was not equal to the task. Tsunade paused a moment, considering what she had heard. You're honest, at least, she said. A quality you don't always see in shinobi without a village affiliation. Why deceive when deception can serve no purpose, Hokage-sama? Tsunade smiled again. Indeed. She walked back around her desk and returned to the comfort of her chair. Uzumaki Naruto, you are hereby restored to full active duty. Since both Kakashi and Sakura are away on another mission at present, you may spend your time as you wish until called for. Naruto gave an invigorated salute. All right, Tsunade Bar-chan. Tsunade nodded and then addressed Keisuke. Keisuke of the Grave, I welcome you again to our village. Please feel free to treat Konoha as your home for as long as you wish. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Also, because Jiraiya has vouched for you, and I have no doubt that Naruto would if I asked him to, I would like to extend you an offer of work, as a shinobi under my command. Both Keisuke and Naruto balked at this. They had talked among each other about possibly getting Keisuke accepted into Konoha's ranks, but Keisuke had not expressed any confidence that this would happen. Hidden shinobi villages generally did not tend to hire outsiders, lest they be spies or assassins from other countries. Ah, are you certain, Hokage-sama? You haven't known me more than 5 minutes. Keisuke was uncharacteristically bashful. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Are you at all uncertain of your ability to serve this village with honor and loyalty? Keisuke exhaled deeply and set his face straight. No, Hokage-sama. Good. Tsunade withdrew a stack of papers from her desk drawer. Fill these out, and then report to Training Area 17 on the date indicated. One of my Junin shinobi will be there to serve as your examiner. Naruto piped up. Examiner, Bar-chan. Yes, of course, replied the Hokage. It's obvious that Keisuke is at least a Chunin-level shinobi. However, we do not have enough evidence of his higher levels of performance to promote him to the Junin level right away. The examiner will fight him, and if he performs well enough, then the examiner will recommend him to me for promotion. Once it's done, he'll get his Hitai 8 headband and his vest and we'll be ready to use him in the field. Naruto grinned wide and said, so, a test, huh? You'd better not fail it, Keisuke, or I'm never going to let you live it down. Keisuke restrained himself from smacking his little brother upside the head and bowed deeply to Tsunade. I am honored that you put so much faith in me, Tsunade-sama. I accept your offer gladly. Tsunade rearranged the paperwork on her desk, picked up her pen, and resumed her daily workload. It was quite large. On a less joyous occasion, she might have grumbled over it. That'll be all, you two. Dismissed. Shizune, please show Keisuke to the Human Resources Department downstairs and see to it that he gets himself some decent housing. Hitaki Kakashi woke from his slumber feeling completely drained and badly sore. He could remember very little of the events of the past few days. He knew that they had left Suna partially victorious, the Kazekage, Gara of the desert, saved at the expense of a venerable and wise old woman's life, but the Bayou known as Shukaku having been taken despite their best efforts to thwart Akatsuki's plans. He remembered that Hyuga Haruka, a woman that had joined him early in the fight and been a great assistance to the entire effort, had volunteered to escort Kakashi home, along with Sakura and the young Junin from Suna, Temari. He also remembered a brief period of wakefulness in which the group had suddenly been attacked by a renegade appearing to be Naruto, his former Genin student. He hadn't had a chance to see how that encounter had ended before sleep had taken him again. Finally able to stay awake for longer than a few moments, Kakashi silently resolved, not for the first time, to forever after be much more conservative when using his Sharingan. The other occupant of the room saw him stirring feebly, and came to his side. Squinting in the bright light, Kakashi could make out the form of Haruka standing over him. He made an attempt to raise his head, but Haruka stopped him. Save your strength, Kakashi-san, she said. You're going to need it to recover from the strain of using your Sharingan, among other grievances. Held fast by both her kind intent and her firm grasp, Kakashi complied. However, he could not relax his curiosity. The Naruto copy that charged us, he said, what happened to it? Ah, you were awake for that? Haruka asked. Her expression was apologetic. I tried to keep that quiet, seeing as how you needed your rest. That's all right, Kakashi returned. What happened to it? Haruka heaved a sigh. The clone did not remain a clone for long. After a day, it lost that shape and returned to its original form. Kakashi pondered. Was its true form anybody that you or Sakura recognized? No. It was pale and nondescript. Neither of us could remember anyone like him. I see, Kakashi said. Well, no help there. Have we reached Konoha? Hi, Kakashi-san. So the imposter is being interrogated. Haruka nodded. Tsunade-sama asks you not to worry. Morino Ibiki is seeing him as we speak. Kakashi said, satisfied. Ibiki would get the truth out of the little worm, whatever he had to do. For a moment, they were silent. Both of them were wondering the same thing. When the true identity of the culprit was determined, and the name of his superior dug up, would it be just some random troublemaker? Or would something or someone more sinister be behind this? Thoughts of the dark snake Sennin and his favorite apprentice as well as of Akatsuki agents made Kakashi cringe. For two of the greatest enemies to strike one after another in such rapid succession. Naruto-kun and Keisuke arrived only a day before we did, Haruka said, breaking the silence. It seems that Keisuke is going to be accepted as one of the shinobi here, and they'll be testing him for Junin level within a week. Kakashi didn't reply verbally, though his uncovered eye widened in surprise. He knew as well as anyone else how rare an occurrence this was. Yet he did not question it, he knew Jiraiya, and trusted his judgment. And Naruto tended to pick good people to befriend. Instead he asked, who will be testing him? Tsunade-sama didn't say. Ah, it might have been interesting, Kakashi-san, if you were well enough to do it. After all, both of you have special abilities that you were not born with. Kakashi could not nod, but he made an effort to show assent. The Sharingan, and this Ryude that you've told me about. Hi. It would have been very intriguing, I think, to see how those two matched each other. Kakashi wondered only a moment, and then it clicked. To see how Naruto's ability might compare to Sasuke's, right? Haruka's turn came to widen her eyes. Your powers of insight are as good as I've heard, she said. Naruto-kun is a good young man, as I've learned from my 2 years in his company, but I do often wonder about this Uchiha Sasuke that he sometimes talks about. From what I've heard, he could be very dangerous. Indeed he could be, Kakashi said. Naruto and Sasuke share a bond not uncommon among boys their age. They are the fiercest of rivals outwardly. But unspoken between them is a bond of deep friendship. Haruka stared at him as he went through his monologue. Naruto had only told her the bare bones about Sasuke's involvement in his life. It seemed that it was a painful memory to talk about, or else Haruka would know more already. She cared for the boy as something halfway between a mother and a sister, and knew he'd had a hard life, but she hadn't even dreamed that he could have gotten himself into a situation so painfully complicated. Both of them have led extremely painful lives up to this point. Both are striving to be stronger. Both possess incredible powers, but the similarities end there. Naruto is a class clown, a pariah who fights with the Rokujuon Ryude and the strength of Yondaim's legacy. Sasuke is an avenger, a survivor who fights with the Sharingan and strength born of lust for revenge. Kakashi paused to let his body recuperate before finishing. Inevitably, one of them must defeat the other decisively. But nobody has seen Sasuke for 3 years, and who can say what this Ryude technique will do for Naruto? We can't predict from the different drives alone which one is stronger. So all we can do, Haruka took over for the exhausted Junin, is put our faith in Naruto-kun's motivation to succeed, and do what we can to help. Yes, Kakashi finished. He sagged into the hospital bed, fully ready to go back to sleep. Haruka stood, a resolved look on her face. Thank you, Kakashi-san. I'm sorry for disturbing you. You need to recover, and it probably is not easy to speak of this. But you've put my mind a little more at ease. Rest well. And she walked out of the room, leaving Kakashi to his fitful dreams. Haruka approached the Hyuga compound with mixed feelings. She had not been here, in the presence of other Hyuga, for many years. As an outsider, an independent, she was still supposed to be welcome upon the property. In spite of this fact, however, she could not shake off the eerie feeling of forbidding she felt as she entered. The courtyard felt cold to her and unforgiving, as though she were treading thin ice. For many paces, she met nobody, and began to think that perhaps the family had relocated. As she turned to go out the way she came, though, Haruka found herself face to face with a middle-aged woman who blocked her way. She had the same silver-white eyes and dark hair that characterized all Hyuga, but these eyes were not looking at her with any sort of welcome. Suddenly, Haruka believed she knew why she had begun to feel so cold. I know you, the woman spoke. Her voice was venomous. Kin abandoner. Kin abandoner. Haruka could remember her father being called such in the early days of her childhood, just before they had left Konoha. Apparently, this woman was a branch house member who had known her and her parents then, and resented them for leaving. Haruka steeled herself, resolving not to be drawn into a conflict. In a calm voice, she addressed the angry woman. Greetings, sister. Is Hiyashi-sama here tonight? The woman's expression did not change. Yes, he is here. What business does an outsider such as yourself have with him? I have returned to stay in Konoha for a while, where I will be helping some friends of mine. I intend to give my report to Hiyashi-sama and then to ask him to allow me house room. The face of the woman contorted into a sneer. Hiyashi-sama will not be able to hear your report, as he is occupied with family and village business. There is no more room available to you. Leave at once. Haruka was rapidly becoming confused. She also was Hyuga, even if she had lived outside the village for most of her life. Why was this woman so cold to her? Haruka knew that the spacious estates of the Hyuga could easily accommodate her. What compelled this woman to tell such a blatant lie in order to make her leave? Annoyed now, but in control, Haruka spoke again in a firmer tone of voice. I am certain that we can come to some kind of arrangement. May I wait inside until Hiyashi-sama has a spare moment? Hiyashi-sama will have no spare moments for some time, kin abandoner. Leave. Exasperated, Haruka dropped all pretense of following protocol. No, I will not leave until I have spoken once to Hiyashi. You are obviously doing everything in your power to prevent me, though you should have no reason to. But I will not yield to you unless the clan head commands me to do so. Haruka turned to head back into the compound, only to find herself facing 3 more Hyuga with the same malefic expression. These were somewhat younger than the first woman, and evidently more adept at combat. All of them bore the caged bird seal upon their foreheads. We will not permit you to simply walk in here like a haughty noble, as though the Hyuga owe you something. No, you will leave now, kin abandoner, or have your comeuppance given you by our hands. Angry now and afraid, Haruka could neither go forward nor back away. What gives you the right to deny me, your own flesh and passage into my own ancestral home? What makes you think that you are in any position to claim that I warrant any sort of comeuppance? The Hyuga branch members advanced, slowly, cautiously, measuring the strength of the invader. Their Byakugan eyes blazed with white anger as they raised their palms before them. Then, at some unspoken signal they charged. Haruka braced herself for the impact of 3 Jukan palms. A voice crying out to the evening twilight stopped everything. Enough. The branch members halted their advance, turning to see their clan leader standing wrathfully in the front doorway. Immediately, they sank to their knees in deference to Hiyashi. Their Byakugan eyes receded. Leave us, commanded Hiyashi. His order was obeyed instantly. The first woman, however, made sure to give Haruka one last vengeful look before vanishing. Come with me, Hiyashi said, and turned to go into the main building. Morino Ibiki emerged from the interrogation room, finding the Hokage waiting for him. His face grave, he adjusted his head cover and drank from a flask on his belt, preparing himself to give his full report. Well, he said at last, the prisoner has finally responded to us. Very interesting news, Hokage-sama. Tsunde's face held a stony expression, prepared to hear the worst. All right, no mind games, Ibiki. What is it? Ibiki was quiet for a long moment, pondering what he had heard and trying to make sense of things in his own head. He turned it over again and again until the Hokage finally snapped him back out of it. Morino Ibiki, what have you learned from the captive? Quote. He has returned, Hokage-sama. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.